Hello and welcome to a new video on Race Room Racing Experience, where today we'll be recreating the Macau GP with the GT3 field. 20 of us in total racing against the AI. We're going to be starting from 18th position there with the Porsche 911 GT3R. And we are going to be diving straight in with this 20-minute race. Rolling start, as you can see, now getting player control, so we're off underway and racing. Just double checking in the rear view mirror there, using the track IR to make sure I was clear to move over and open up the corner for ourselves. We've got a slightly better run through that than the McLaren 650S, so we're immediately up into 17th position. Approaching this corner though, we're going to need to be careful because the AI do often make a mistake going through that. It can sometimes lead to a crash, but we got through it cleanly. We've got a run here on the road racing as we're coming into the braking zone for the 90-degree right-hander in this Audi R8. It's gone right across my nose in the braking zone. Some contact, some argy-bargy with a couple of other cars, but we are through. Audi and Mercedes are going to make contact up ahead. That's going to allow us to slip up past the Mercedes AMG there and up into 15th position now. We've got a bit of a run at this Porsche, but the track is so very narrow through this section. It's almost impossible to overtake unless someone is very, very slow and gives you the room. So we're going to settle in, and you can see just how mad and manic this is, with cars immediately in front and immediately behind in this single file train. So trying to filter our way through, getting very, very close to the wall on the inside there. Just about managing to stay off it, also staying off the Armco barriers, as we can see, as we're snaking our way through the corners around this very tight and twisty and technical circuit. Porsche going deep, making contact with the walls, getting very, very sideways there on the exit. Could potentially give us a bit of a run and trying to sneak and move around the outside, just about managing to pull that one off before the braking zone in a very unusual place to pass around the circuit. You can't typically pass there, but as we had the bit of speed and momentum over the Porsche, we just about managed to make it work before the braking zone. Now we're coming into a very tight left-hander, closing up on P13 up in front, and then we come into the tightest and most difficult part of the track, and you can see the AI really struggle with this section. They slow down to what almost seems like a fixed speed limit just to be able to filter through because of that hairpin there, where it's so very tight on the exit and narrow. You can barely get two cars side by side through that section. It starts to open up now as we're coming towards the end of the lap, and the Porsche and the Audi having a little bit of a ding-dong, trying to see if they can get past each other. I'm trying to capitalise and get in on the action as well. A little bit of contact there between myself and the Audi R8, both on the side and on the rear bumper. Coming out the exit of the corner, now coming up to the final turn, breaking that 100-metre board. We're alongside him, going to be here on the outside, picking up some on-power understeer, and that is going to force us to settle in behind as we begin lap 2 now. But we're going to be in the slipstream, coming through turn 1 and then along these two straights here. We're just going to need to be careful of this very high speed SIF gear right-hander that we're approaching. Just a quick glance in the rear view mirror using the track IR5 to do that slight lift as we're coming through the corner. The Audi gets very sideways out through the exit. Had to lift off the throttle there to make sure I avoided contact and gave myself enough room. Had to shift down into 5th gear. The Audi's coming back at me though under braking, but he's going to be here on the outside, giving him a slight squeeze. On the exit, I think he actually glanced the tyre barrier that's out there on the outside, but we're now up into 13th position, capitalising on that sideways moment that the Audi had, and then obviously being able to do it under braking. So now things are starting to spread out a little bit more. There's a few more gaps between a couple of cars, but it still doesn't make this section any easier, as is very fast, very flowing, kind of switching back and forth between a series of left rights and right lefts, and it's quite easy, especially when you first start trying to learn this circuit, to get lost as to whereabouts you are and what sequence of corners are actually coming up next. These two are quite tricky before we drop down the hill. This is where they passed the Porsche last time round, and this is also where they had that massive, great big GT3 car pile up in the 2018 Macau GP. Very difficult right-hander there. As you come up over a crest, the car gets very, very light, and the barriers are very close on the outside. And now we come into the left-handed hairpin there. Just using first gear, can stay in second, but with cars pretty close in front, sometimes easy to just drop down into first. Once again, following the AI through, coming into this tight right-handed hairpin, and then we'll get hard on the accelerator coming out of that, going through this left and then this right. And it looks like we've had a better acceleration coming off of that corner, and we're going to slingshot ourselves past the Porsche before we get to the penultimate turn. Managed to make the move stick. It does give me a flash of lights for some odd reason. That move was perfectly fine, but we're now up into P12, so we're approaching the final corner for the second time in this race. Down to third gear, trying to tuck the car in for a relatively late apex, but the car just starting to understeer a little bit. Glance in the rearview mirror there. Just come through turn 1 now. Hopefully we'll be able to take this turn 2 right-hander completely flat out. So chuck the car in now. Just a very slight breathe on the throttle. It's quite difficult to judge that correctly. And then we get hard on the brakes into this 90-degree right-hander where the circuit really tightens up, and the McLaren in front of us has gone and tagged the wall there on the outside. It's allowed us to close up onto the back of him. But we're now coming up to a section of the track where it's pretty much single file unless someone makes a major mistake. So fall through that right-hander, second into this left, then we come into a kind of double right-hander, but it's the later apex. That is the key one to get right. Third gear into this left, the radius of the corner tightening as we go through it, so I want to try and hook up a late apex for that. This right-hander relatively easy, and then come into some medium to high speed left-right, which can be quite easy to catch you out. And we come into a left-right once again before dropping down the hill once more. I've actually got the AI set to 110 difficulty level. They're pretty much bang on pace for what I'm able to do when running out in clear air, but not quite 100% used to the AI as of yet. As you can see, making contact with the back of that McLaren. Yeah, not quite 100% used to them as of yet here in Race Room. And this is where I decide to actually go and exploit the AI in their very slow speed going through that section. You can do it, and it's relatively easy to do, but you need one, the space in front of the car that you're going to pass to slot into, but also two, to get yourself back over far enough left to open up the hairpin for yourself. Steering lock on these cars basically makes it that there's only really one line going through that hairpin, and if you're too far over to the right, it's very easy to catch the wall on the outside on the exit. But still, we're through now up into P11. 12.5 minutes remaining here in this race, plus the lap that we're on when the countdown timer reaches 0. But yeah, as I was saying, not quite 100% used to the AI here in Race Room as of yet, so giving them a little bit more room. So just a slight lift off the throttle there going through turn 2. But yeah, giving them just a little bit more room, a little bit more breathing space, just so I'm not going into the back of them quite as much as the Porsche and the Audi R8 up in front, battling away for position, and the Audi R8 catching the wall. That's going to gifted us P10, but very, very close to going into the back of him as he was trying to accelerate away from his incident. Just about managed to squeeze on through. So now coming through the snaky section, turns to try and open up that right-hander for myself as much as possible, although I probably tried to open it up a little bit too much there. Getting extremely close there to that concrete and brick wall that was there on the left-hand side. Filtering our way through the snaking left and right. And then again, oh, just a slight tag there with the Armco barrier on the inside. No damage though, despite this being on authentic damage and mechanical failures also being on as well. Buzzing the rev limiter there before coming up to that right-hander. Now we come into this hairpin here, try and hook up a latest apex. And I'm running the default setup on this car, and one thing that I have noticed is that the car is quite understeering in a couple of places, kind of in the medium speed, and then also went on throttle as well. So that would be something that I'll be looking to change if I was to actually fiddle with the setup, but it is completely default and bog standard. I haven't changed anything here in this. But we're closing up on the Porsche in front, mainly because I had the room to take the usual amount of speed, or close to the usual amount of speed, going into that hairpin where the AI are very slow. So let's see what we can do. Trying to pick up the slipstream now as we're coming through turn 1, starting to close that gap and reel that Porsche in front in. We're not going to be close enough to make the move coming into turn 2, so we're going to have to settle in behind, lifting out the throttle there as he goes a little bit tight, a little bit too cautious on our part. We've dropped back a car length or so. It's going to make it very, very difficult to try and make the move coming into the right-hander. We're going to have a little bit of a look, but not actually go for the lunge and take up the racing line. So Porsche goes through the corner and catches the curve on the inside. Very, very wrong. And that ends up spinning him off and into the wall on the right-hand side. And that's given us the freebie to get up into P9. So we've got some very clear air now in front of us. Let's see what we can do with that and push on through this section. Coming into the left. Second gear. Coming into the right-hander, bringing the car down. So pretty slow speed and filtering on through. We got very, very close to the wall that's on the inside there last time round. This time we're a little bit too far away from it for my liking. Starting to pick up some understeer now on the car. Noticing that the tyres aren't quite as fresh, don't quite have the bite that they had a lap or two ago. Coming into the right-hander there, it's quite easy to catch the tyre stack on the outside, but I managed to keep the car out of that. Now we come into the left-hander, putting quite a lot of steering lock on there to try and get the car in through the turn. And there is the usual speed that I usually take into this hairpin, mainly because I have the room, so that's going to allow us to close up onto the car in front. So we filter our way in and on through. And what I might do is actually go quiet for a minute or so you can enjoy the sound of this Porsche 911 GT3 here in Race Room, because these sounds are absolutely phenomenal. So there you go then. Race Room, absolutely fantastic in the sound department. The flex on the transmission and drivetrain whine is absolutely brilliant. Definitely one of Race Room's strongest points. And as you can see, coming into the last 5.5 minutes, we're catching up onto the back of the Bentley in front as it gone and made contact there with the barrier on the inside. Kind of took my cue to turn in from the Bentley, and he actually ended up turning in too early as well. but he kind of double stabbed at the corner whereas I took a single stab, and then yeah, kind of clipped the wall on the inside, but still no damage inflicted on the car. It has cost us some ground to the Bentley, as you can see. Not really in the slipstream here, coming down this straight, coming into turn 2. Oh, grazing the concrete barrier on the outside there. Just having a look at the tyres, the state that they're in terms of their temperature and also their wear on that Motec display. It's pretty difficult to actually read there, but the temperatures look a little bit cold to me. I'm not entirely sure of the temperature thresholds, what their ideal temperature ranges are here in Race Room, but kind of down in the 60 odd degrees isn't ideal, and it's probably a bit of an indicator as to potentially why I'm getting some understeer at the front of the car through some of the corners and when getting onto the throttle. I think that's also just a bit of a trait with the Porsche 911 as well, with the engine being so far back over the rear axle, being rear-engined. There isn't all that much weight at the front of the car. Helps with the traction, but yeah, isn't so great when coming off the corners. Once again, starting to get close to the Bentley on the not on the inside, but coming through this section, and now coming into the speed limiter section here as well. So see, you're going to make contact with the rear of him, just kind of misjudging the braking there, coming into that section, and the little beep they heard is actually the downshift protection, which prevents you from downshifting too high up into the rev range, and that little beep is basically a warning as to when the downshift is being cancelled, as you're doing it too early. You saw almost went into the inside barrier again, going through the penultimate turn. Turned in a little bit too early there for the final corner. Once again, that's going to knock us off the back of the Bentley in front. The guy behind us is starting to catch us a little bit as well. Once again, just a slight breathe through the throttle, managing to keep it out the concrete wall this time. Still trying to pick up that slipstream. The Bentley is quite far over to the inside, closing up an awful lot there in the braking zone. Well, the Bentley is a very heavy car, so probably needed to start braking a little bit earlier than I did by a few meters. And in this section, the Porsche should be stronger going through the corners, but Bentley have done a fantastic job with the Continental GT3 in making it competitive despite its size and its weight, as once again we're getting very close to the barriers on both sides of the circuit and through that right-hander there as well, managing to thread our way through between the barriers, getting very, very close to them in the process. Once again going through that left-hander. I'm not entirely sure how that wasn't actually clipping that bit of arm coat. There's another rev limiter there in second gear. Through the hairpin. Take it a little bit more easy this time coming into this section, and there again is the downshift protection. So come through the hairpin. Oh, getting a little bit too hard and a little bit too early on the throttle. You saw just clipping the outside barrier there. Hasn't really affected us too much though. It's just knocked us off the back of the Bentley by a car length or so. Getting very, very close under braking. The AI very, very strong coming off of these final two corners. We start to pull out a gap. I reckon if I had adjusted the setup and made the car a little bit better, more compliant on the throttle without the understeer, probably hang a little bit closer to them going through and coming off those final two corners. especially the final turn. But yeah, as I said, just using the standard default setup, just a slight breathe on the throttle there once again. Didn't come off it completely, just lifted to about 70-odd%, just to help get the car through. Very fast right-hander, we're now coming into slow right. Before finding another one. Trying to use the full width of the track to our advantage. This is the final lap, the countdown timer has reached 0. So we've done the full 20 minutes. And you can probably guess where our best overtaking opportunity on this Bentley is going to be. It's going to be into that very, very slow left-handed hairpin. I just need to try and hang close. And obviously time it right in terms of exploiting the AI's ability to navigate through that section. It's not something that I'm particularly proud of and like to do too often, but they are very, very slow through that section. Possibly a little bit slower than they need to be when there's a bit more space. Obviously it makes sense for them to be that slow going through there on the first lap or so, but once the cars and the field are spread out a little bit more, they probably can go in a fair amount quicker. So here we go, trying to time it right with the Bentley, trying to open up the corner for ourselves. The Bentley's actually trying to come back underneath us with a switchback here, but we've just gone and accelerated a little bit harder than he did coming off the corner after the contact. And managed to retake that 8th position, but we've just got to try and hold on to it now coming through the final couple of corners. See, he's starting to pick out a bit of understeer, but getting a fairly good drive coming off the penultimate turn. So now 100-meter board for the braking point coming into the final corner. Just let the car roll on through the turn and accelerating out. A little bit of a celebratory weave there. It's coming across the line in 8th position in the end. So that was my recreation of the Macau GP. If you enjoyed it, give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Try and get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the content, feel free to consider subscribing to the channel. That way you won't miss out on any future content that I do here on the channel. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I shall catch you in the next video. But until then, have fun, stay safe, and take care.